Hi, this is Dr. David Klein with Stages of Life Medical Institute, Longwood, Florida. Center of the state, marvelous place to live, great weather. It's warmer than it is where you're at, I'll bet you. Okay, we're going to talk about statistics, misunderstanding statistics, because most people that are listening have never really taken formal courses in statistics. Okay, you think you have. You really haven't. There's one thing as an analytical chemist, I've taken bunches of courses in statistics, and every time I take one, I realize that I know less. This is going to be quick, and it will not be boring. It will explain some of the things to you, and as it goes, you need to understand that the people that you're seeing on television and elsewhere telling you this, telling you that, expect this, expect that, really have as equally difficult time identifying their elbow from their rectum. Now, here's why. When you're looking at statistics, you have issues of measurement error. Okay, errors of measurement enter into things very, very quickly when you're looking at populations and when you're looking at things like epidemiology. How many people live in a particular area? Well, there's error number one. So every 10 years, we'll actually do a census that gives you some guess as to how many people are living within an area, what their demographics might be, how old they are, whether they're alive or dead. If you're a voter, they don't even know if you're alive or dead until you show up at the poll. Therein lies a problem at the polls. Have your identification card ready. There's a reason why they don't want dead people voting. And the same thing is true with population statistics. Who is there, who is sick, and who isn't? If you're living out in the middle of the country, and you get sick and you roll over and die, nobody will ever really find out necessarily why. So you may never enter into the statistic pool. They may not even ever find your body in some parts of the country, like in the hollers of West Virginia or in the Everglades here in Florida. So you make presumptions, and this is where error number one comes in. You make presumptions that the data that you're getting is accurate, but you know full well that it isn't. You make a presumption that there are no other possibilities but the ones that you present out there. So like either you have COVID and you die, so you died of COVID, or you died with a disease. That's a problem, because when you're looking at prevalence of the disease, that's how much is out there amongst the population. Okay, that's very, very different than whether or not people get ill or even report that they got sick. So for many years, doctors didn't or don't report certain illnesses that they're supposed to report to the CDC or the health department or whatever the appropriate agency might be. So they get inaccurate data. They want data on this, COVID, on a daily basis. Many other things, we call them up. No, we don't take that data anymore. They just guess is what they do. All right, so presumption, then assumption. So when you're looking at modeling, you make assumptions. Well, let's assume that every person that comes in contact with this disease is going to pass it on to 3 people. And you've heard that one. Well, guess what? If that were the case, everybody in this country would already have this disease. It doesn't work that way. Somebody walks into an elevator in New York City, the other 20 people in the elevator, not all 20 are going to get sick. If somebody walks in with shingles, which is probably the single most infectious disease that there is, it's called chicken pox. 100% of kids that are exposed to it that don't have immunity are going to get it if they walk past your kid's room. That's infectious. Okay? Influenza kills maybe 50 times more people than COVID. It would seem that if it's the same seasonality, that you would see similar death rates or similar infection rates. So it may or may not be as infectious as they assume it might be. So the assumption issue is a problem. Okay? We're going to assume that it hits sick people more than well people. We're going to assume that it hits old people more so than young. It's not always the case. So you'll see things change. It was assumed, wrongly in this case, that the virus could not pass from humans back to animals. No, back in January, I suggested that it came from animals, and that's going to be a reservoir of these virus issues. Guess what? I wouldn't have guessed that it could pass on to a lion or a tiger, but I know full well it can go onto a dog or cat. 2 vectors of infection that infect a major number of people's households. Okay? That's a problem. So assumptions can be right or wrong. If you're going to get it, it's going to be from a neighbor, not from a dog or cat. Nonsense. Now, data error. Is it thumbs up or thumbs down? A lot of these tests have gray areas attached to them. You don't always know what you're dealing with or with whom you're dealing with. So I have a laboratory that does genetic testing, PCR. Okay, you watch these crime shows, and you see the tattooed gal go in there and run these tests on these fantastic looking machines. Well, we actually have them. And my technicians, not to my knowledge, are not tattooed in exactly the same way. But they're running some rather sophisticated tests that have limits of detection. You can't pick things up if it's below the limit of detection. So the modeling, these are the things that they do to guess what's going to happen, are based upon three very slippery numbers, based upon presumption, assumption, and data error, and then you end up with modeling. And when you look at the models, there's going to be a hard line in the center of it, and then there are going to be two, a high and a low, and a gray area in between. And if you look at the differences between those numbers, you're going to realize that it's 3 orders of magnitude. That is a huge variability. So well, it could be as few as 1,000 people or as many as 100,000. That's what we're left with. And if you look at where we are in the curves, you'll realize that we're at the beginning of these things. So I have a hard time accepting many of the modeling numbers that are out there. We're going to see 200,000 deaths. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I hope very much that I'm correct in this, but it's going to be what it's going to be. You have to be prepared for the worst, hope or pray for the best, and do your very best to keep from getting tagged. Now, what does this mean? It means that not everybody that gets touched by this virus is going to get sick. And it might be as few as 50% are going to get any symptoms at all. And of those, maybe 1 in 30 might end up in the hospital. That's enough. 1 to 2% of people ending up at the hospital, that's a problem. There's no question about it. But let's do the best that we can, hope and pray for the best. Thank you very much. This is Dr. David Klein, Stages of Life. I hope I confused you just a little bit more. Thank you.